Here we're going to rebuild a Blackhawk go-kart made in Broadhead, Wisconsin. This would have been about a 1975 model. This is a Sidewinder, left-hand engine. This is being done by Steve Welty, Welty Racing. Now we've got a pile of parts here that we're not using, including the piece I'm holding. These karts were built with a lot of pieces held together with heim joints. A lot of stuff we're not using for a good reason. Things like this front bumper, that front axle. Most of these pieces laying here in this pile we're not using. I've been cleaning up all the parts, getting things ready to go back together, so items like this rear engine mounts all polished and everything and redone. Got the new tie rods ready to go. Been working on the front bumper pieces, the rear bumper pieces. Fuel tank is one item that was original in this kart that's going to remain. It's in pretty nice shape. It's been all redone. The steering supports, the uprights, build all new uprights for it. All these pieces are getting TIG welded together on the aluminum by my fellow vintage karter, Rick Magnuson. I just came back from the powder coater today, so we have a bunch of new powder coated parts. As you can see, a brand new front end, new engine mount. The rear supports are original. The Nerf bars supports I just made. The spindles are brand new spindles I just made. We've got the original upholstery seat that came in this kart, which we will not be using. We're going to swap that out for a fiberglass bucket. We've got a lot of long rails made. Long rails like these right here. And these are sleeved rails, 7/8 tubing inside, 1-inch tubing. This engine mount here, motor mount, swing mount, does not go with a Blackhawk kart. That goes with one of our Alley Cats. Well, we're about ready to start assembling this kart. I'm missing a few pieces, but we'll do a rough assembly of it. There's a couple things that still have to be done before I can final assemble it. So even though I don't have quite everything yet, if it goes together and comes back apart, that's fine. A lot of pieces involved in this go-kart. Not your average restorer's dream. You get one of these, a lot of times you just start over. You have the old pieces to mock everything up with. You know, even the pieces for the rear bumper weren't any good. I mean, when you get pieces that look like this, all you can do is make a new jig off of these pieces and start over. They're pretty bad. Slowly working on this front end. This kart's so unusual. You can build the front end, you can build the back end, and then you can put the rest of it together. One of the things you want to make sure you do on your spindles is be very sure that you do not have threads in the working part of the spindle. You want to cut your bolt off so that you have the right length bolt, so that you actually have bolt coming through all the working part of the spindle and none of the threads are in there, and then shim that out with washers, machine washers, whatever you have to get it snugged up, because the threads are just going to wear. Well, our pile of parts is starting to disappear. It's becoming less and less, and we're starting to get this kart together. There's a lot of fitting, and even though I've had it together once, I still got pieces that don't want to go together like I'd like them to. changed the way the rear end's set up. Because the front end, clear up here, did not have that rear tube going across it on the front axle. Originally, right there, that tube didn't go across there on the original axle. On the later sidewinders, they put that tube in there to strengthen the front end. So this tube that's right here that I have running up to this center point comes back here and it's shock mounted. That's this tube right here. Shock mounted. That originally went up under the front axle, but because of that second tube in there, you can't get under the front axle to run that tube the way you'd like to. So I shortened it up, ran it to the midpoint, ran it back here to the shock, and shock mounted it with this rear end. Because we're not putting the original upholstered seat in this cart, we're putting a fiberglass bucket in it. A little story way back in the day, I was racing an oval in Madison, Wisconsin, and they didn't run any weights, and I had this same particular cart. I was up there one night and I'd taken the upholstered seat out, put a fiberglass bucket in it, which I didn't do that nice a job of putting it in. Don Fairman showed up that built these carts, leaned over the fence. He says, "What the heck did you do to my go-kart?" I said, "Don, we don't run weights up here." I said, "I just lost 7 pounds. A couple weeks later, Don was experimenting with putting fiberglass bucket seats in and did a lot nicer job than I had done. And so the later ones had the fiberglass buckets in them. So yeah, this cart's a real challenge to build. Well, it's another day. I just got some of my parts back from Rick Magnuson that he welded up. I just finished polishing these. This will hold the master cylinder. This will end up going on here. This is actually a steel tube. I just painted it silver to help keep it from rusting inside the aluminum. And of course it's just absolutely coated with anti-seize. And believe me, I have anti-seize everywhere. Nothing will ever stick in this garage. Got the Nerf bars back. Just finished polishing these. Get Heim jointed on up here. Got the uprights here. Got these all ready to go, and they got to get welded into place here yet. So little by little, piece by piece, starting to come together. Throttle assembly's all hooked up, ready to go. Brake pedals on. As soon as I get the master cylinder sleeve put on there, I got to get that center section welded up for the Nerf bars and then pull that all out of there. Get that painted, even though a lot of the parts are powder coated. I didn't have that done, and so that part's just going to get painted black. Long process. Day by day, I keep making more progress on this cart. I've actually bolted the bottom of the chassis together for its final time. I have 2 brackets to make in the back yet. Then I have the entire lower chassis all done, waiting for the steering shaft to get back and the ends to get welded into the 2 steering column parts that'll be right here. I'll get this thing cleaned up here eventually. Just covered with anti-seize from the sleeve tubing, and I have anti-seize on me everywhere. But it's coming together now. Squared the cart up today as I was assembling it. Very close to being perfectly square. And when I talk about square, I'm talking about Xing from the rear axle to the opposite side front kingpin, and then doing the opposite so that I have everything. This thing won't dog track going down the track. Typical Blackhawk fashion, you can walk up to the cart and pick a corner up 2 or 3 inches off the track. Doesn't matter which corner, any corner. Don't have to worry about these carts being tight on the track. So it was an engineering feat. I think to me, it's the coolest go-kart that's ever been made. Drove a lot of different carts. I actually had one of these at one point. Drove a lot of carts over the years. I won't say this is the best kart that was ever made by any means, but to me, it's just got a cool factor that you can't touch with anything else. I've just had it on the floor, sat in it. Kart is super comfortable. Working on getting the fairing straightened out here on it now. Got the steering column all in yesterday. Get that all assembled. Got it positioned where I want it. Got the seat pretty well in where I need it. Obviously it's not the final installation, but start to get the idea how everything's going together here. Just about wrapping this project up. Brakes are all bled. Still got kill switch wires to put in. Get the engine mounted up on it. Got the seat to paint yet, and a fairing to paint. But the kart itself is basically together. It's been a fun and interesting project. I said I wanted this done for Christmas. Today is Christmas Day. So here we are. Everything mocked into place. I like Heim joints so well. I even have my seat strut rods on Heim joints. You know, don't want to tighten this cart up any. They were made to move around. Grab any wheel, pick it up, watch the whole cart flex. The rest of the wheels all stay on the track. Completely different kind of go-kart. This is not an inexpensive cart to build. When you have to redo one of these and rebuild every piece on it, it's going to break the checkbook. Needed a flip-up cap for the gas tank. They make these for Cobras, and since it's got a 2-inch opening, drops right in the tank. Flip-up gas caps that actually came on these are really hard to find. They don't make them anymore. Yeah, we got one last item to put on this cart that really sets it off. It's a pretty rare go-kart. Typical of what I do, I like flames, so I'll put a nice classic flame paint job on this cart. Well, that's the last piece besides an engine. Initially we're going to run this in Sportsman Sidewinder with an 820 West Bend, I believe. I have Mac 92 I can put on it. I think we're going to run the West Bend to begin with. Since somebody wrote the rules for that class, I guess he should run in it. Well, there you have it. Building of a Blackhawk Mark 11. Hopefully this is the only end anybody will see. Yeah, right.